And I held up the sides, the little script they give you. And I was like, you know what these are? She's like, what are these? I said, sides. You know who gets sides? She goes, who? I said, people with lines. She's like, holy shit, are you kidding me? So it was this great little moment of just, hey, I cracked the code. I had the opportunity, I was prepared, and I nailed it. You know what I mean? I won the job in the moment. So, and then that went on my resume, and like now I've got one of the hottest shows on TV on my resume. And all of a sudden now my manager was able to get me auditions. I was able to get an audition for Jericho, and I booked that, and The Unit, and it was Justified and some other things. But it was just cracking those first couple. That first one was absolutely luck, but you know what they say, luck is preparedness meets opportunity.
That's not much of a change for you, right?
My name is Kerry Kite. I used to load bombs in the Air Force, and now I'm a writer, a filmmaker, and an entrepreneur. Through using the post 9/11 GI Bill to go to college, working hourly jobs to pay the bills, and freelancing my way into a career, I've studied what it takes to successfully transition from service to civilian, and that study has become a conversation. On this podcast, I speak to other veterans, successful artists, and entrepreneurs about their transition, what they did well, where they failed, what they learned, and most importantly, how they applied their skills.
Episode 182 features actor and Marine Corps veteran Michael Broderick. Michael has built the kind of career a lot of actors dream about, but not overnight, not through some clean, easy path, but by staying in the work. He's been on shows like 24, NCIS, True Detective, The Terminalist, American Horror Story, and a whole lot more. In this conversation, we talk about what it actually looks like to become a working actor. Classes, auditions, co-stars, guest stars, the momentum, the mistakes, the luck, and most importantly, the preparation required to be ready when the opportunity finally shows up.
Welcome. This is Veteran Made.
Our merch store is live at store.veteranmadeproductions.com. Grab hats, t-shirts, and hoodies in both performance and tri-blend cotton fabrics. Use code VM-5OFF for 5% off your purchase. Veteran Made is also sponsored by GoPills, a military-grade nootropic that contributes to brain health over time. Use code VM15 at checkout for 15% off. I get my collagen protein from Bubs Naturals, where you can use code VETERANMADE, all one word, at checkout for 20% off your order. We're also proud to partner with True Made Foods, which makes condiments free from added sugar and sweetened with real foods. Use code VET at checkout for 15% off. We love socks in this house. I get my wife new socks every Christmas. More importantly, we love American-grown and made socks. Use code VETERANMADE15 at rucksocks.com for 15% off. And lastly, I end my day with Rack Out from Bravo Actual to maintain quality sleep, resulting in a well-rested body and mind. Use code VETERANMADE with a space between the words at checkout for 15% off your order. Enjoy the episode.
All right, we are live. Good afternoon from the great state of Ohio for me. Good afternoon from the great state of Tennessee. Michael Broderick, welcome to Veteran Made.
Hey, thanks, man. Great to be here, Kerry. How you doing?
I'm excited to have you. I'm excited to have another non-Angelino industry professional holding it down for everybody, outside of the coast. No, we love our Angelinos and we love our New Yorkers, but I am increasingly excited to see lots of other people, going to Atlanta and Nashville and, we're hoping here in Columbus, Ohio and New Orleans and all these other places.
Well, I was 13 years in New York City and 18 years out in LA before I moved to Nashville.
Oh man, you put your time in. I was 2 years in LA and 5 years in New York City. So nothing compared to you, but where'd you live in New York City?
All up and down the West Side. My first place was up in Morningside Heights, up by Columbia.
Yeah.
And let's see, I lived as far down as Harrison Street, down near the World Trade. But we bought our first place. My wife and I, after we got married, we bought our first place in the West Village, and we had mostly the West Village. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. We were in Brooklyn. And then I worked at one of the agencies. I tended some bar and waited some tables in Chelsea. And then the first agency production company I worked at was out of Chelsea. So yeah, we were in Brooklyn, and then I was going into I don't say into the city because I consider Brooklyn the city. It is one of the 5 boroughs, and our friends that would come visit us would be like, "Oh my gosh, you live all the way out in Brooklyn." And I'm like, "Dude, we're just off the yellow line. It's actually faster for you to get here from your place than it is for you to get to the Whole Foods that you go to, up in the Upper East Side or Upper West Side. So, we're
Right.
not that far.
Yeah, it's so funny because when I first moved to New York City, like you just didn't go to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there are areas of Brooklyn, but I'm saying if you lived in Manhattan, you didn't go to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
It was only if you lived, if you lived in Brooklyn, you're from Brooklyn, you lived in Brooklyn. Now
Right.
it's like I remember when that neighborhood first started coming up, or that borough first started coming up for like Manhattanites to move out there. I think the first section they came up with, it was Dumbo or something. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh great, you got a name. All that means your rent's going up.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, we had friends that lived in Dumbo. I spent a lot of time in Dumbo. We had friends that lived in one of those high rises down there. Yeah, that is the thing. It's like, you don't live in New York City. You sort of grow up watching all those New York City movies, whether it's the gangster movies or the rom-coms or the whatever, and you kind of start to feel like you have a good idea of what New York City is like. And of course, you don't until you live there. But one of the things about all these neighborhoods, Tribeca, it's been there for a long time. But then there's Dumbo. There's all these other ones that they kind of come up with, and it's always interesting to see which ones stick. You're definitely right. That means the rent's going up, but then some of them don't stick, and you're like, who's the marketer that's behind trying to make this new way to make this thing stick, and it just doesn't. And it's usually a real estate.
Yes, some catch on, some don't. Now, granted, I moved there in 91, so it was a different city. Like 42nd Street was 42nd Street still back then. You know what I mean? So I remember I used to see a girl that her mom had a place down on like 10th Avenue and 42nd. I'd get off at Broadway and 42nd and walk all the way down to 10th Avenue. It was shady as hell. But then you had the whole Giuliani era, and then cleaned up everything, and then Disneyfied everything after that. And so it was an interesting time to be there. I left there in 2004 is when I moved to LA, and then we came out here in 22.
So you were there. I didn't realize you were there for 9/11.
Oh yeah, dude. First plane flew right by my wife's window at work.
Jeez.
Yeah.
What? I certainly did not expect to be talking about this, but it's not often that I talk with a New Yorker. I know you weren't born there, but you were there long enough. I consider you a New Yorker. There during 9/11. Man, so it flew. What was that? What was that day like for you guys?
Crazy. I used to annually post this little essay I'd written on the 1-year anniversary, just about my experience, kind of in the first person as it's happening. Maybe I'll post it again this year. It's been a while because 25 years this year, right? That's crazy.
Yeah.
It was a crazy day. I bartended, so I was still sleeping, and my phone rang, and my wife was on the other line. We were married about a year, a little over a year, and my wife was on the phone, and immediately, I don't know what the hell she said, but I could tell by the tone in her voice that something was wrong. So I kind of instantly woke up, and I was like, what's going on? She said, a plane just flew into the World Trade Center. I was like, holy shit. And I immediately thought back to 92 when I woke up to, on the news, there was, they tried to blow it up from underneath. Mohammed Salame, wasn't that his name? They made that funny song on Comedy Central. I can't remember. But when they tried to blow it up in 92 or 92 or 93, I can't remember. It immediately flashed back to that. So I immediately thought terrorism. I was flipping channels before it was even on TV. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I remember I was going through, CBS, NBC, ABC, and all of a sudden I saw it on ABC, and I flipped back, and, it was just like, holy shit. And I immediately thought terrorism. And then, the rest of the day was just crazy, man. I told her to get home, because she worked, she was within kind of walking distance. She worked on 7th Avenue, and we lived in the Village. And so I just wanted her to get home, man. And it seemed like forever before she got home. It was a crazy day. I mean, we saw people like cell phones didn't work because everyone was trying to use them at the same time and all this stuff. I remember seeing people walking up 7th Avenue just covered in white powder, Like we stood on a friend's apartment just watching the smoke and watching the one come down. I think I missed the other one coming down, but we were either glued to the TV on somebody's roof or just walking around the city, and the city was crazy, man. It was yeah, man. I didn't expect to get in all this kind of heavy stuff right away, right?
Yeah.
It was a bad day. I briefly considered re-enlisting, because you're all pissed off and whatever. Ended up not doing that, but yeah, man, it was a weird day.
Yeah, so it's always strange to sort of collect these memories. I moved to New York City in 2016. So the right after the 15th anniversary, I moved to Brooklyn in October of 2016. So it was right after the 15th anniversary, which is coming up on 10 years ago, which is kind of crazy. And just talking to people there, just like how different it was sort of before and after, right? That sort of moment. I was 13. I was here in Columbus, Ohio, 8th grade art class, right? When that happened, I didn't have sort of the context, right, to jump to any sort of thoughts as to like what it might be. My dad was actually in DC on work. And yeah, like you said, cell phones were like pretty brand new at the time. And so I was like, I actually did not behave very well in that particular art class. And that teacher and I were kind of butting heads all the time. And I'm like, hey, Miss Cheatham, I know that I'm always acting out, but like I'm dead ass serious when I tell you my dad's in Washington, DC right now. Can I please use the phone to try to call? And she's like, yeah, of course. And so I went and used the landline at the in the class, like in the school building, and it obviously wasn't working. And then I called my stepmom at home and she's like, I can't get a hold of dad, this, that, and the other. And so he did finally get a hold of her, and she called the school and let them know. And, the principal told us to turn off all the TVs. So like we watched this thing happen as 8th graders, 7th graders, 6th graders that were there. And then the principal probably made the right decision, right? Turn it off, let the parents talk to him about it. And so like the rest of the day was like a blur for me. And I remember my dad did finally get a hold of my stepmom and told her that he rented a car. I don't know how he got one, rented a car at Dulles and drove home to Columbus. It's like I don't know how long the drive, would have been with like that kind of traffic. And I remember like we saw the lights kind of pulling. We ran out to the driveway and like met him there. And it was like, he was telling his side of like what he saw, and we were watching the news, and yeah, it was crazy. And now here we are coming up here in less than a month on 25 years. Yeah, it's wild. Well, okay. Well, should we start the podcast?
On a lighter note.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot like that. I heard you said you were there and the time frame. And so that's kind of what clocked it for me. So thank you for sharing that. I know it's not easy. Well, yeah, we're here to talk. I mean, as you know, I have, sort of revamped the podcast a little bit here, primarily talking to veterans that are in the industry. And, you're a working actor, a successful actor. I've got your IMDb up here and looking at all the stuff that you've been on, network TV and prestige television, True Detective. You've been on the Terminal List, and Jack and some of the other members of that crew are friends of the show. American Horror Story. You've been on all kinds of great stuff. So I'd love to just kind of dive into what it's like being a working actor. You got some guest star spots, you got some recurring stuff, and you've been working for a real long time and seeing a lot of success at it. So I mean, I know you were a theater kid and then you enlisted, right? And then now you're here are working. So what's that journey like for you?
Oh, it's interesting. Well, I guess we could certainly go back to the early days. I grew up in a little town called Spring Lake, New Jersey. It's on the Jersey Shore, just a beautiful little town, small town. And they had a great community theater there. It was the Spring Lake Theater. And in 1982, I joined they started a theater workshop for, young people. And I was in that like inaugural class of that group. And so for the next several years, we did, shows every year, and all year would be every Tuesday. It was we'd do an hour of acting class, an hour of singing, an hour of dance. I was never a huge fan of dance. I'm not that coordinated, but I had some fun. So yeah, I was a theater kid, man. But I joined the Marines right out of high school, and kind of kept wanting to be in front of people. I mean, I had a couple bands while I was in high school, while I was in the Marine Corps. We played, when I was on deployment on the USS Nassau, they had a band room. So we put a band together. We played a show on the hangar deck. We played a show out in like Haifa, Israel, and one other place that escapes me right now. And then when I came back from float, I started a band at NCIS New River, and we used to play the Officers Club and the E Club and out on town and stuff like that. So kind of being an entertainer has always been part of my life. And I fully intended to get out of the Marines and go be an actor. I moved to New York as soon as I got out, and then I don't know, I didn't really know what I was doing, right? So I tried my hand at stand-up comedy, was doing that for a little while. Then I met a fellow who was putting together a band, and we played together for almost 10 years. We were going for that brass ring. We were thinking we were going to bring punk rock back, because this is like pre Green Day and all that stuff. It was kind of at the tail end of the Seattle grunge scene. Yeah. And we were just tired of what we were calling, what we were referring to as mope rock. So we wanted to bring back the 2-minute 58, rock and roll song.
Yeah.
And we had no idea what was going on in Orange County, though. So we were kind of taken by complete surprise when Green Day hit, and then like the Offspring hit and whatever. But we kept at it till we couldn't stand each other anymore. And then actually, I was still playing in some bands when 9/11 happened. Go back to 9/11. And Band of Brothers was on TV. I don't know if you remember. It premiered the Sunday before 9/11. And then I think it might have been off for a couple of weeks, and then they picked it back up. And, I knew we were going to war, so I was riveted by it, and I found a lot of comfort in it. Just being like, all right, we're going to be okay. We have competent men in our military. We're going to be all right. But it really kind of made me reconsider acting again. And so I was rolling because I was like, not just entertaining things, but important things still come out of Hollywood. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then I guess it was about 2 years later when they first announced they were going to do The Pacific on HBO. And I was like, I gotta go be a part of this. Right. So it's funny. We had just bought a place on West 10th and Bleecker, and my son was less than a year old. And I walked in one day, and I said to my wife, I sat her down at the kitchen table. And it's funny because we had just been out in LA a couple months earlier, or about a year earlier, on her business. She was in advertising, and we're on the 405, and she's like, I could never live out here. Like no way. Right. So now I got to sit her down at the kitchen table in New York City and be like, hey, how would you like to move to LA so I can go try to get in this Pacific thing? And, at first, it was a little bit of pushback, but we talked through it. And she's like, look, is this what you really want to do? And I said, yeah. She's like, all right, let's do it. So we sold the place we just bought, made a nice little chunk of change on that. And then we were able to move to LA. And I started, throwing myself into acting classes. Now I'd already started doing some voiceover and stuff. So I was making some money that way. And I was able to quit bartending and just be a dad and do voiceover. But then we made the move to LA. And I just, like I said, threw myself into it. Now, obviously, you can look at the credits. I didn't get in the Pacific. I didn't even get an audition. But, you don't know how things work really when you're first starting out. You figured, I'm just going to show up and be like, hey, get me an audition. It didn't happen. So I didn't make it in that. But I started acting. I got my first role on 24. And then, just started putting together a little career after that.
So my roommate in LA, this is going on 15 years ago now at this point. I went out to LA after film school to be writer, director, producer. He was an actor and a writer. So we would write together and he would act in my stuff and try to develop some things together. So I would go to acting classes with him and our other buddies. And then I think you and I talked about this before, like we would just go take camcorders out or whatever, sometimes not even film it. And we would just do improv and go to Big Bear and just like hang out, have a good time and like do stuff. And I love that as a writer and as an aspiring director. I love the idea of just like trying to understand what it was like from the actor's perspective. Right. And so just immersed myself in their world, never with the intention of like actually taking a class or actually going in for auditions, just to be slightly more than an observer, right? A participant in a way that I can help serve my own craft, but then also try to understand from their perspective and have that kind of like empathetic view. And I'm glad that I had that perspective and I didn't have the itch, because I watched him go out all the time. I'm running sides with him at the house. I'm running sides with our other buddy. I'm running sides with our other friend. And they're just going out all the time and grinding at these auditions, changing plans last minute, doing different stuff, and just not landing everything, right? Like it is a lot of people have a view of actors, and they assume every actor that they see on TV or in movies is really rich. And B, they assume that they're famous and coddled and, snowflakes and like all these different things. But like, working actors it's blue collar work to a certain degree, right? You're going out all the time and you're going into a new environment every time, right? If you're recurring on a show, amazing. You're in a couple of episodes, you'll get kind of that consistency of environment. But if not, like you're just going in, working for a day or two, doing an episode, waiting for that episode to come out, getting the clips, showing it to your manager and all that different stuff. So all of that for the audience to sort of paint the picture from my perspective of kind of like how and why I'm asking you these questions. So you go out, you don't get the Pacific, but you land 24 and you start to work on some other things. Like you have the military background, you're a bit of a punk rocker, you've got kind of have some life under your belt, you've got kids, you've got a wife, right? You've got that. But like now you're thrust into this world where you're just grinding, going out for auditions. Like, how did it hit you when you first got out there and had to put in that work?
Well, even though I was with a reputable company, I was with William Morris for voiceover. They didn't rep me for on camera stuff, so I had to like try and get a manager and all this other stuff. So the way that I was able to break in, for lack of a better term, was I started working for a military advisory company. At the time, it was called Gunmetal. A fellow by the name of John Barton was partnered with a fellow, Matt Siglock. And I think they're both still working in that space, but just separately. Cool. Both great guys. They had this company, Gunmetal. They only hired veterans. And you would go in and you'd do special ability stuff, breaching rooms, things like that. So we were basically skilled background guys, and but we were working all the time, and you'd get like not quite stuntmen rate, but better than backgrounds, you know what I mean? So we were making like decent money, and you're I was learning about how things work on set as opposed to just in acting class, you know what I mean, which was really valuable. And then one day on 24, I was literally just background, and there were a lot of extras that day. So they used us veterans to kind of keep the other background people that are supposed to be military in check, like straighten their ribbons and, keep your hands out of your pockets, stuff like that, So I'm literally supposed to be this like general's attaché or something in a bunker scene with the Joint Chiefs. And suddenly one of the actors got fired. It was just like a co-star that was like briefing the president and the Joint Chiefs. And so the director sent the AD out, and they said, all right, who's SAG? I was already SAG because of my voiceover work. So, about a dozen people raised their hands, and the director came out. He's like, you. He picked a dozen people, and we all went into a room individually with the director and read for the role right there. And now, granted, I was in class like 40 hours a week, and my cold read was pretty good, So made a good choice, nailed it. After everybody went, the director comes out. He's like, "Thanks, everybody. Michael, come with me." He's like, "Make him a lieutenant colonel." So I was a major, make him a lieutenant colonel, and they put me in front of
right there.
Battlefield promotion, exactly. So he introduced me to the cast, who's all waiting very patiently on set under the lights, And they bring me around the other side of the set, and there's just a camera and a table set up and a chair for me, and I do the scene. And it's funny, I've told this story before. So, but I went home and I picked up I insisted they show me my trailer, even though I would never see it. I said, "Show me my trailer." So they took me to my trailer, and I took off, and I picked up a bottle of champagne on the way home, And I came home and I was early because we were, the rest of the day they're still shooting, but my scene was done and you can't see me again. So I'm gone. And I walk in, my wife's like, "What are you doing home?" And I said, "Here's some champagne." She said, "What's this for?" And I held up the sides, a little script they give you. And I was like, "You know what these are?" She's like, "What are these?" I said, "Sides." "You know who gets sides?" She goes, "Who?" I said, "People with lines." And she's like, "Holy shit, are you kidding me?" So it was this great little moment of just, hey, I cracked the code. I had the opportunity, I was prepared, and I nailed it. You know what I mean? I won the job in the moment. So, and then that went on my resume, and like now I've got one of the hottest shows on TV on my resume. And all of a sudden now my manager was able to get me auditions. So then I was able to get an audition for Jericho and I booked that and the unit. And then, what came after that? And I switched managers and then it was Justified and some other things, but it was just cracking those first couple. That first one was absolutely luck, but you know what they say, luck is preparedness meets opportunity. The opportunity came and those other people could have got it, but I won it in the room, So, I was ready, and when it came, I was able to get it.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting, right? Because I'm curious. Do you remember? Can you take yourself back? I mean, you already mentioned a part of it is not to lead the witness, so to speak. But you said you're in class 40 hours a week. You're taking this shit seriously, right? So you were prepared at least at a baseline level to like.
Mm-hmm.
You even said it, you're like, I'm going to have to make a choice here, right? The director's looking for somebody who's going to make a choice. I might make the wrong choice, but either way, I got to make the choice. I can't just go in and read this without, making a choice. That's what actors have to do. What was your mindset like? Can you take yourself back there? Like, not that you have to remember the specific choice that you made, but like, did time slow down for you? Did it speed up for you? Were you like, holy shit, this is a moment? Or was this like, hey, I'm just going to be here?
Well, I was definitely nervous. No, I wasn't nervous for the audition, I don't think. But once I was going to be in front of a camera, I was definitely nervous. If I go back and I watch that clip now, and I can hear my voice is a little higher, because like it's just like I was kind of tense. But no, it was. I think by that point it was kind of reflex. I studied over at the Vincent Chase workshop. Everybody says, "Oh, the guy from Entourage." No, it was actually it was this older gentleman. I think he's probably passed by now, but they say Mark Wahlberg got the name for the character from this guy, because he's like a legendary acting teacher in LA. Vincent Chase workshop ran every day. And they'd have different classes throughout the day. That's maybe 40 hours a week was a little exaggeration, but at least 20. I do scene study, I do, script analysis, I do, whatever. I was there every day. I'd do my VO stuff in the morning, go over to my agency, read, and then like head over to Sunset and go on, or Hollywood. I can't remember. Hollywood, I think. Anyway, and go to Vincent Chase workshop, spend there, and then come home at night. So I don't remember the choice I made, but it was already reflex to make a specific choice and not just say the thing. And here I will share this with you. The director was Chaloff was his last name. Can't remember his first name now, but director came out when he picked me. He was bringing me to set. He said, "Man, you got great instincts." And I was like, so whatever it was, whatever I had kind of trained myself to or been trained and absorbed to do, paid off. So I don't really remember exactly what it was, but what is it? They say you don't rise to the level of expectations of your expectation. You fall back to the level of your training. Right. Yeah. And so I think that's what it was.
Yeah. Yeah. You took it seriously, right? You took it seriously as a craft. And I mean, you just describing the cadence of your day, right? Like you've got that baseline of that VO work, which is great. But then you're out there taking it seriously. And then when the opportunity comes, you're like, okay, cool. I've been trained for this particular scenario. And every actor knows, or every person in the industry knows, you're not going to get every opportunity, but you got to be ready for those opportunities when they do come. And you got to be confident in your training. And like you said, absorbing it and saying like, all right, this is the choice that I'm going to make. I mean, I think, a lot of people think again, that actors are just given lines and then they just kind of know how to read them, and all they have to do is like look good on camera. And it's like, no, there's, like you said, script analysis that goes into it. Well, what was this character's moments before, right? Like, what are the things that are informing him being in this situation? You know, and again, you're on a show where they're running for an entire season, you know, and that's an hour by hour, you know, sort of interesting template for a show, so to speak. But still, like, that whole cast, like, they're all working together all the time. And then you're thrown in this situation being like, all right, I got a few lines in this moment, and then I get to go home early. And so it's a different, what's that like for you to do that on a regular basis? And how did you start to feel about, okay, I've got my training, I've got my understanding of how certain characters work. And I think what's interesting about actors in your position at that point in your career is like, you have a different set of choices to make every single time you book, because it's a different character on a show that has other characters that are together all the time.
Well, you know, co-stars are difficult often because you get one thing, you know what I mean? Like, you know, well, nowadays they try and sell you, it's a large co-star so they can avoid paying you guest star, you know what I mean? It's 3 pages or whatever. You know? But back in the day, co-stars were, you know, here's your coffee, sir, or sir, I looked into that and nothing turned up, you know, or whatever it is. So you don't have a lot. The key was not, for me at least, I realized early, don't make a meal out of everything. You know what I mean? You're there to serve the story. It's not like this is my moment to shine and somebody's going to say, oh, he should be the lead in the show. You know, it's, you're there to, you're a device, you're a talking prop, basically. So serve that purpose. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do it with full intention and a full inner life. It just means that recognize where you are in the hierarchy of story, right? And I think that puts people at ease, that like casting directors. Oh, there we go.
There we go. Let's get it back
there
going.
It is. Hey, I'm back. That puts people at ease, like the casting directors especially. Like, okay, this person's not going to embarrass me. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it's easy to be eager especially in your early days. And I certainly was, but I just knew to temper it and don't let it show. You know what I mean? So, early part of my career, it's all about trying to keep some kind of momentum. Hell, all the way throughout your career, it's about keeping momentum. But especially, it feels so important in those early days. I made a mistake, which I'd probably like to share with you and maybe some of our viewers that are considering, or maybe are in the beginnings of their career and are having some success. I stopped going to class. I was like, oh, you know, I'm good enough to work, so here I go, you know. And then I stacked up, you know, 8, 10, 12 co-stars, you know, this and the other thing over the years. And I was never getting any opportunities for guest star. And I'm like, what? Like, I thought it was like, I don't know if I took the time to think about it, but I think subconsciously I was like, it's a ladder, you know. I did X amount of co-star, so obviously guest star, and then, you know, series regular, and then you know what I mean. So but that's not how it is, man. So I finally had a realization. I said, well, maybe I'm not getting guest star opportunities because I'm not doing guest star work. You know, I'm reliable, they can count on me to you know, deliver whatever they need to deliver, not bump into the furniture, show up on time, know my lines, look relatively good while doing it. But how deep am I getting? So after several years of being stuck in co-star land, I was considering taking classes again. Joe Mantegna came to speak at a VME event one night. He'd do a Q&A. He was like the keynote speaker. And during the Q&A, I jumped up and I asked him, I said, Joe, how important is it for you to keep keep training once you've already started working? And he goes, well, how often are you working? I said, I don't know, 2-3 times a year. And he's like, no. He's like, I'm not in class anymore because I'm on set every day on Criminal Minds. He's like, that's going to the gym for me. You know, he's like, you gotta keep going to the gym. He's like, you can't work your way up to a 300-pound bench and then just go once a month. You know, he's like, you're not going to be able to lift that kind of weight. I was like, so I got myself back into class. I started studying with a fellow by the name of John Lacey out in LA, who's a Meisner guy. and that was relatively new to me. So, but man, I almost regretted that I didn't study Meisner earlier, because it really clicked with me right away. It was so accessible, and we started working together. And I started working with John, with the goal of getting a guest star. And within a year, I got my first guest star audition. Shortly after that, I booked my first guest star, which was on NCIS, I believe. And then shortly after that, man, I booked True Detective, recurring. So stay in class, kids. Like I said, even if you feel like you don't have anything else to learn, which you always have stuff to learn, but you know how you get. Stay going to the gym. You gotta lock eyeballs and trade impulses with another human being in order to stay sharp.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the hardest parts about this industry is not being able to do your job every day. Especially when you get started, right? Like you're describing, Joe was on set 5 days a week for Criminal Minds, so he's working every single day. I'll never forget when my now wife and I, we went to high school together. We know each other for 25 years. Long story. There's other podcasts out there people can listen to get that love story. But we got reconnected when I was living in Los Angeles and she was in New York City, and got back together over the phone, and we were talking, and she looked me up and she's like, oh, I sent her some of my shorts and some of the things. And she was like, man, it's really exciting. I'm really proud of you that you did what you set out to do. Like you directed some short films and they're on the film festival circuit. That's really cool. She's like, how's it all going out there? And I was like, well, it sucks because I only do my job a few times a year, right? Because I'm tending bar and waiting tables the rest of the time. So long story short, that's why I got into branded content and advertising and documentary work, because it's like, oh, I can do this every day. I can learn the craft. I can learn other angles of the craft. And lo and behold, I'm not a director by trade anymore. I'm an EP. And that's what I love doing, because I put myself in a position to do the work every day in a slightly different capacity than I anticipated being in. And I found another path. And so for actors, it's like, it's like, yes, go to class, but also when you go to class, you're going to work. Like you are going to actually stretch yourself and find the edge of where your abilities still need to develop. And like putting in that work, getting those reps, right? Looking at it like from a strength and conditioning standpoint, like that's it. It's like, it's not off season. You're just always in season, and you're putting in that work.
For sure. No, I agree 100%. Couldn't have said it better myself.
What I got to ask, big True Detective fan, what's it like performing Pizzolatto's scripts?
Dude, we, in Lacey's class, we actually spent a weekend shooting excerpts from his book, like Galveston and one of his other books. We did scenes from True Detective seasons. We did a whole bunch of stuff, and it was almost like it was almost like I manifested this thing. You know what I mean? But I will say it was epic, man. I got to work with 3 different talented directors. Pizzolatto was one of them. So it's Jeremy Saulnier, Nick took over the middle section, and then Dan Sackheim came in as a, yeah, dude, it was great, man. And all 3 very different, great experience, man. Really enjoyed working with Daniel Sackheim. Just nuts and bolts, explains everything to meaning like, okay, this is the purpose of this shot. So he explains the shot, what he's seeing before we even, so it kind of helps you speed up the process. You know what I mean? He's not telling you what to do. He's saying, this is what the shot is doing. And then you can live within that frame. So everything works perfectly. And I really enjoyed working with him. But saying Nick Pizzolatto's words, like, well, the man standing behind the monitors, pretty awesome. I'll tell you, I had a little moment. We're shooting, I played a special agent, John Bowen. That was his name, Special Agent John Bowen. I'm an FBI guy, and me and my partner are working with the 2 locals, Mahershala Ali and Steven Dorff. And so we're constantly in the bullpen, and we're looking at evidence, this, that, and the other thing up on the board. And so we're shooting that over our second day. And I'm sitting right across from Mahershala, who just won the Oscar. And we're doing our thing. And then I had this like flashback of like sitting across the kitchen table from my wife. trying to convince her to let me go out to LA to be an actor. And I was like, holy shit, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I'm doing it right now. I'm doing it. You know what I mean? And it was just a great feeling, man. It was one of those kind of out of body things where I was like, man, I'm sitting across from an Academy Award winner and I'm saying Nick Pizzolatto's words. This is awesome.
Yeah.
So, definitely a highlight of my career, man.
That's amazing.
And one of those just kind of, my inner 12-year-old was geeking out huge.
I love to hear that, man, because I think, you know, we can steal the joy from ourselves way too often. I always tell people, like, you know, I primarily work in branded content and advertising, so it's not important. We're selling shit nobody needs and putting things on the internet, you know, pictures and videos on the internet, right? But it's amazing that the economy has gotten to a spot where we get to do this kind of work and this kind of craft on a daily basis. And I try to remind people, like, dude, this is very silly that we get to do this for a living. We've worked really hard to get here and we've had a lot of luck to get here. And there's stressful days and stressful moments and different things, projects and this and that. But like, just remember, like, we were kids one time who watched movies or watched TV or watched commercials and said, I'd like to do that someday. And now we get to do it. So it's just
absolutely.
Like, just enjoy yourself and don't steal the joy from yourself. It's just like, we should enjoy doing this.
Oh, I couldn't agree more, man. I think, you know, I'm a fan almost above anything else. You know what I mean? Like I have to stuff that away when I go to work.
Yeah.
You know, I have to be like when I was working with, when I did Terminal List, you know, and I had a scene with Chris Pratt. I'm such a Chris Pratt fan. You know what I mean? Yeah. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to work with Chris Pratt. This is awesome. But you got to just tuck that away, you know? Yeah. And like, I know we're all, look, and I am a professional. I was going to say we're supposed to be a professional. I am a professional, but I'm also a fan.
Yep.
I love, like, you can know how the magic trick is done and still be a fan of magic.
Yep.
You know? You have a different understanding of it than other people. But, dude, I love it. I love any day on set's a good day, even when I'm miserable. You know, like I remember one of the earliest things I did in Hollywood was doing some background stuff on Jarhead, and it was this day where it's freezing cold out. We're crawling through the mud and the water and this, that, and the other thing. And Jim Deaver was the military advisor on that, and a lot of the extras are quitting. Okay. Because we're literally so cold and freezing and wet. And I remember he had identified a few of us that were Marines. He's like, where are my Marines at? Get back in. You know, it's like, so he's making us go back in so other people will follow us. Basically, you know, follow me, you know, and get back, crawl under the wire again through the mud and the wet and, you know, freezing cold. It got so bad that at the last take, I started to get up. Like, cause we crawl under the wire and then we get up. It's a scene in the movie where a guy gets shot, like on the little wire range or whatever. And I crawl through and I'm supposed to get up and run and go around and do it again. And I stand up and my hips lock up just cause I'm freezing and I fall over on my face. And my two other Marine guys, you know, they were both veterans too. They came and grabbed me, you know, under hooks and just dragged me off. Yeah. But yeah, that was a miserable day. But you know what? It was still a blast. It was great because I love this stuff. And then you see it on screen. You're like, hey, I can't even find me, but I was in that. You know, it was so awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you know, you do something like where you're the lead in an indie film or something, and you're like, you know, I try not to pull my stuff apart too much when I'm watching it, you know, but I enjoy the moments where I'm like, oh, that's exactly what I was going for. You know, that moment of silence or whatever, that look whatever, that's, it read, you know, cause you never know if it's going to read when you're in your own head or, you know, when your character's like in the moment, but it's all, you know, it's all part of it. And I did, I'll watch myself. I know some people don't watch themselves. I enjoy it. Cause I'm like, holy crap, I'm doing it. Look at me. Look at me go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's cool. It reminds me that in one of the later seasons of Entourage where Johnny Drama finally makes it as a working actor, and he's a star on one of the 5 Towns, I think the show is called or whatever. And there's this montage of the group or whatever, of all the guys, and they're supposed to be doing whatever they're supposed to be doing, and plans got changed and canceled, and the second AD comes in to Drama's trailer, and he tells me, hey, sorry, Drama, like, we're behind, we're not going to make the day, you're going to hit OT, you're going to be here till midnight or whatever. And Drama just goes, are you kidding me? I live for this shit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like, I pull that clip up on YouTube. Like, I love that, because it's just like, it is such a good reminder to be like, I wanted this thing and now I am here. And so I'm going to do what is required of me from a work standpoint, but then I'm also just going to enjoy the hell out of it and just be, you know?
Yeah, we really are so lucky. Like when we get to work, it's such a gift. And I mean, maybe gift's the wrong word. Not that you didn't earn it, not that you didn't put in the work, the time, the effort, but it's a privilege, man.
Yeah.
And I relish it. I relish every moment.
Yeah. I think too often those are truths that can coexist, and we try to make them competing truths. They don't have to compete. You can be lucky and you can be privileged, and you've also worked hard, and all of those things are true. And that's, I think, part of one of the interesting things about, you know, I think about somebody like you in your position trying to answer these questions about like, well, yeah, I want to help other people understand. It's like, well, some of it you can't understand by intellectualizing. You just have to like experience your version of it. Not to get too woo woo, but it's like, we're all on the journey we're on. The things are going to happen that are going to happen. And you gotta meet the journey where you are, and you've either put in the work or you haven't. And both of those things can be true.
Absolutely. I think everybody's got a different path. That's why, you know, certainly, you know, over the years, especially when I was involved with Veterans of Media and Entertainment, a lot of the newer guys, you know, fresh, you know, still got sand in their boots or whatever. And they're like, how do I become an actor? You're like, whoa, okay. There's like, I kind of had to discover it on my own. Yeah. But you know, there are certain right things you can do, like find an acting class, you know. Yeah. But everything else, man, is just flying by wire.
Yeah. 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 I love it. All right. We got about 15 minutes left. Let's take it back to New Jersey. Let's take it back to theater. You are on stage touring here. Let's tell us about this, and tell us what's coming up here.
Last Out, Elegy of a Green Beret. I've had the privilege of playing this role, Master Sergeant Danny Patton, in this play. It's written by Scott Mann, who's a retired Green Beret, 23 years of service, multiple tours in Afghanistan. It's inspired by his experiences, the guys and men and women he served with, his life at home, his family life. And it basically brings to the audience the experience of what multiple tours, the effect it has on the warfighter and the warfighter family. It's really powerful. Starts conversations, because really he didn't write it for veterans. He wrote it for civilians to kind of understand what it's about, what it's like. So I've been playing this role for almost 2 years now. We tour, we get out, you know, I'd say between 8-10 times a year. We've been all over the country, been to Colorado, been to Minnesota, Florida. We're all over the place. But the exciting thing that's coming up right now is I'm getting to go home to my hometown theater in Spring Lake, New Jersey. And where it all started, we're bringing Last Out there. And it's been more than 40 years since I did my first performance there. So it's crazy. And I'm very excited about just bringing it back home to where it all started. And that's going to be on the 29th and 30th of this month. So it's you said this would probably drop on Monday or something, Monday 24th.
Yep.
Yeah. So Saturday and Sunday, we're going to be at Spring Lake Community Theater. You can get your tickets at springlaketheater.com. Come see me as Master Sergeant Danny Patton in Last Out. How much more can I tell you about that?
Well, I want to hear about your feelings. Like, tell me what it feels like. I mean, you said it's been more than 40 years since you've been on stage there. You're coming back full circle. It's where the itch started for you. Yeah. It's where the craft started for you. It's where you're doing an hour of acting, an hour of singing, an hour of dancing. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we don't often get the opportunities to go back to where we started and actually deliver on something that we set out to do. So how does that feel?
Well, it's Spring Lake has a really special place in my heart. I mean, it's where I grew up. I don't have family there anymore. You know, everybody's gone their different ways, and but I still have friends there. And some of my best friends in the world were folks that I met during those few years with the theater workshop there. And it's where I really grew up. You know what I mean? I sometimes I say, you know, I might have become a man on Paris Island, but I grew up at the Spring Lake Theater.
Yeah.
It was, you know, just everything from, you know, I was so I was freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. Yeah, pretty much all through high school. My teenage years, it was the 80s, you know, we were like experimenting with, like, we're, you know, smoking cigarettes. We're going, kids are buying us beer and stuff. You know, you're meeting girls. You know what I mean? It was that, I think it's like that summer, the summer that we did Grease. I think it's the summer that in the movies, that's the summer that the main character looks back on, the defining summer. You know what I mean? Yeah. You know, my friend Eric, who helped me get it into the theater now, he's you know, he lives in Jersey, and great guy. My best friend since I met him that summer. He came the second year we were doing the theater workshop. He was from Long Branch, New Jersey, and you know, we're still just best friends. He ended up, actually, I'll tell you an interesting story about Eric. My buddy Eric was supposed to join the Marines with me. We signed up together. And we were going to go to boot camp together, and he decided not to go. So I went anyway, and you know, it was just something that happened. And then 9/11 happened, and he signed up to go. And now he's a lieutenant colonel in the Army Reserve. Or colonel? No, he's not a colonel, lieutenant colonel, I think. But he, at 30 something years old, he decided he was going to go, and he did a tour, maybe a tour or two tours in Iraq. And God bless him, man. You know, I'm grateful to him. You know, I'm grateful to all the guys and gals who, you know, stood up when there's a shooting war going on. It's a totally different animal. I served during peacetime, you know. Now, granted, when the time came around again, I was kind of drunk and, you know, everything. So I hadn't run a mile in about 10 years. But God bless Eric, man. The dude stood up and did his time. So he actually helped get Last Out back in the Spring Lake Theater, and like I said, I don't want to belabor the point, but it was really that formative time for me. You know, prior to being an adult in marriage and having a son and all that, it was the greatest summer of my life up until that point, you know. And so many memories in that building and out of it. We were inseparable. The cast of Grease, we were inseparable. We hung out everywhere. We'd go down to the beach. We'd hang out on the boardwalk. We'd, you know, go to the park. We'd get a bottle of wine in a bag and some cigarettes and go hang out, you know. And it was just a great time to be young. And, you know, we all had guitars and played, like, I think we formed a band one summer, and we were just, it's a really, really great time, man. So
Bringing it back. And it's interesting. You're talking about, like, you know, obviously a military term, right? In formation, right? We're in formation, right? As we march. And you were talking about that summer being formative for you, just as a human, as a dude, as a man, right? As a person, but also as a performer, probably, right? Like, those are the things that, like, that's where kind of it got started for you. And then you've been in formation this entire time since, and now you get to come back and you get to bring that on stage there, where it all started, which I think is really cool. And I think going back to the moment you were describing with Mahershala on the set of True Detective, like, I hope you get to experience the joy of all of it coming together, because honestly, dude, like, I mean, people don't get to do that. People don't get to do what you're about to do. That's just, like, really cool.
Well, everybody's been really supportive, and folks back home on social media and stuff. When I said that we were coming back to do it, and I'm expecting to see a lot of folks I haven't seen in years, and it's happening just like a couple weeks before or about a month before my 40th high school reunion, which I can't make it to, so I feel kind of bad, but it'll be great. I'll get to catch up with some people here. But
you'll have to at least get a few of them together, and you guys will have to go get some boxed wine and a pack of cigarettes, and
That's right. Yeah, for sure. Well, I think a lot of the folks from Greece are coming. A lot of the kids I was in Theater Workshop, they're going to be there. It's going to be great to see them. They actually had a reunion too back in January, which I couldn't make. Yeah, man. So this will be special, I think. But getting back to what you said as far as formative years professionally, that it was really where I discovered the kind of the importance of storytelling. You know what I mean? And what it meant to me, how things move you and make you feel. That's what quality art is to me, whether it's a song, a sculpture, a painting, a comic book, a poem, whatever it is. If something moves you, that's important. And different things move different people. And I think in my early days, I was much more of a joker, like the comic relief or whatever. I was a ham, I was like a skinny little runt who I couldn't win girls with a great physique. So I was going to win them with a sense of humor. You know what I mean? So I was kind of the ham, but it's funny now because I play so many authority figures and serious roles and stuff like that. Everybody that I grew up with is like, dude, I thought you'd be like, the comedian or whatever.
And he isn't really, because he's over here doing all these roles.
Right. Yeah, they have no idea how hard comedy is actually. But so it's that's where I really fell in love with it, man. And to come back there with such a meaningful role and something that really does open hearts, open communication. I mean, we do a talk back after every performance, so people stick around, and often we'll have Gold Star families there and things like that. And it's it sometimes it's gotten really deep, man. People stand up and they either ask a question, but oftentimes it's really just a way that they can tell a bit of their story. And I've seen it in real time, open up conversations between husband and wife, between father and son, father and daughter, and I think the show presents things in a way where people are saying to each other, I had no idea that you were going through that. And it's important, man, because if you can't talk about these things, whether, no matter what trauma is, whether it's from combat, whether it's from a rough upbringing, the longer you keep that stuff bottled up and have no one that you trust, especially if you can't talk to the person you love because you're embarrassed or you're whatever it is, if you can open those lines of communication, it's worthwhile, man. And that's why I'm really happy about the play. I mean, aside from coming back to Spring Lake, I'm just happy playing the role of Danny Patton because the play serves a purpose. It's not just pure entertainment. It really does have a mission, and it's one I believe in.
I love it. That's great. I'm bummed. You guys were just in Ohio, and I'm bummed that I missed it and didn't get a chance to see it.
We've been back to Ohio a couple times, man. It's a great state.
Yeah, we love it. Well, yeah, that sounds incredible. I'm glad that you're going to get that experience there at home, and that you get to share it. Obviously, that you've shared it with so many people far and wide, but that you get to go share it with that particular community. That means what it means to you. I think that's pretty incredible. So yeah, we'll put all the information in the show notes for folks that are in that area that want to go see it, and we'll put out a reel specifically for that, and I'll get in touch with their social people. We'll kind of collaborate on that so we can get that out ahead of the show.
Oh, thank you, man.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And listen, I've got like 100 other questions that I could ask you, so let's definitely have you we'll have you back another time. I took some good notes here, and I've got some other questions, craft related questions, different things that I think would be fun.
Cool.
So we'll have to do this again sometime.
Anytime, brother. It was great talking to you. Thanks for having me on, man. It was a lot of fun.
Yep, I enjoyed it. Keep in touch, brother.
All right, bro.
Cheers.